Admiral Do-hyun Park stood at the large window of the Earth Federation ship Serenity, watching the stars blur past. His dark uniform fit perfectly, showing his high rank in the Earth's space fleet. The ship was traveling through deep space, following a strange signal that no one could explain. "Admiral, we're getting closer to the source," said Lieutenant Ta Yang Song from his station at the front of the bridge. The young officer's fingers moved quickly across the glowing control panel. "The signal is getting stronger." Do-hyun nodded, his face serious. After 20 years of space exploration, he had learned that unexpected signals usually meant trouble. But this one was different. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. "How much longer until we reach it?" he asked, turning to face his crew. The bridge of the Serenity was lit by the soft blue glow of dozens of screens. Each screen showed different information about their journey through space. "About 30 minutes, Tai Yang answered. Dr. Hae-yun is still trying to decode more of the signal in the science lab. As if hearing her name, the ship's chief scientist, Dr. Hae-yun Lee, walked onto the bridge. She was holding a tablet computer, and her usually calm face showed excitement. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, walking quickly to where Do-hyun stood. She held up her tablet, showing a series of complex patterns. "The signal isn't random noise like we thought. It's a message, and it's repeating in over 1,000 different languages. Most of them are unknown to us, but some." She paused, tapping the screen to show a new image. "Some of them are in ancient Earth languages: Sanskrit, Classical Chinese, Ancient Greek." Do-hyun's eyes widened slightly. "How is that possible? We're over 300 light-years from Earth." "That's not even the strangest part," Hae-yun continued. "The message, it's about Earth. About humans." She looked up at the Admiral, her dark eyes serious. "Someone out here knows about us. They knew about us thousands of years ago." The bridge grew quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Humans had only started traveling through space 200 years ago. If someone had left this message in ancient Earth languages, they had visited Earth long before humans had space travel. "Show me everything," Do-hyun ordered. Hae-yun connected her tablet to the main screen. The wall-sized display filled with streams of data and translations. "We can only understand parts of it right now, but the message keeps mentioning something called the Celestial Empire. From what we can tell, they were an incredibly advanced civilization that existed millions of years ago." "What happened to them?" Ta Yang asked, looking up from his station. "That's what we're trying to figure out," Hae-yun replied. "The message seems to be some kind of warning, but most of it is still encrypted. We need to get closer to the source to decode more." The next 30 minutes passed slowly. The crew worked quietly, each person thinking about what they might find. Do-hyun watched the stars, remembering all the stories he had heard as a young cadet about ancient alien civilizations. Now it seemed those stories weren't just stories anymore. "Sir, we're approaching the signal's location," Ta Yang announced. The ship's engines hummed as they slowed down from faster-than-light speed. The view outside the window changed from streaking stars to normal space. And there, floating in the darkness, was something that made everyone on the bridge gasp. It was a structure larger than anything humans had ever built. A massive ring-shaped station floated in space, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed with a faint blue light. Parts of it were broken and damaged, showing its great age, but most of it was still intact. "It's a beacon," Hae-yun whispered, her instruments scanning the structure. "A warning beacon left by the Celestial Empire. And it's still working after millions of years." Do-hyun straightened his uniform. "Can we dock with it?" "Yes, sir," Ta Yang replied. "I'm detecting a docking area that matches our ship's systems. It's as if it was designed for us to find it." The next 2 hours were filled with careful preparation. Safety teams checked their equipment, scientists calibrated their instruments, and security officers loaded their weapons. No one knew what they would find inside the ancient structure. Do-hyun led the first team onto the beacon. He walked carefully through the airlock, followed by He-yun and a group of armed security officers. Their boots made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor as they entered the main chamber. The inside of the beacon was both beautiful and strange. The walls were covered in flowing patterns that seemed to move in the light of their flashlights. The air was clean and breathable, maintained by systems that had worked perfectly for millions of years. "This technology is incredible," He-yun said, running her scanner over the walls. "They must have been far more advanced than we are now." They reached a central room where a large holographic projector sat in the middle of the floor. As they approached, it activated automatically. A figure appeared above the projector, a tall, humanoid being wearing ornate armor. Its image flickered slightly, but its voice came through clearly, speaking in perfect modern English. "Greetings, children of Earth," the figure said. "I am Supreme Commander Dal Nim of the Celestial Empire. If you are seeing this message, then our greatest fears and our greatest hopes have been realized." The hologram paused, as if gathering its thoughts. "You believe that your world was trapped, contained by barriers that kept you in your solar system. The strange forces that made faster-than-light travel impossible near Earth, the unusual gravitational fields that seemed to box you in. You thought these were natural phenomena. They were not." Do-hyun and He-yun exchanged looks. Everyone knew about the strange space anomalies around Earth that had made early space exploration so difficult. Humans had only overcome them through decades of hard work and innovative thinking. The hologram continued. "We built those barriers. We, the Celestial Empire, created the containment field around your solar system, but not for the reasons you might think." The figure's expression became more serious. "You see, we didn't build those barriers to keep you trapped inside. We built them to keep something else out. Something that hunts advanced civilizations. Something that destroyed countless worlds before we finally understood what was happening." The hologram waved its hand, and the room filled with images of destroyed planets and dying stars. "We thought we could fight them. We were wrong. Our empire spanned half the galaxy, but we could not stop them. In our final days, we created the barriers around Earth, not as a prison, but as protection." "But why Earth?" He-yun asked, even though she knew the hologram couldn't hear her. As if answering her question, the hologram spoke again. "We chose Earth because we saw something special in your species. Your ability to think in ways we could not understand. Your capacity to solve problems that seemed impossible. The very qualities that made some of our people fear you were exactly what we needed." "The barriers were never meant to be permanent," the figure explained. "They were designed to fail gradually as your civilization advanced, as you found new ways to overcome them. Each barrier you broke through taught you something new, prepared you for what is coming." Do-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. "What is coming?" he whispered. The hologram's image flickered more strongly. "Our time is ending. The Empire is fallen. But you are ready now. The fact that you have found this beacon proves it. You've developed the technology and understanding we hoped you would. The barriers around Earth are gone now, broken by your own advances in science and technology. But before our civilization vanished completely, we left these beacons. They contain all of our knowledge, our technology, and most importantly, our warnings about what exists in the darkness between stars." The hologram looked directly at them, its eyes seeming to stare into their souls. "We thought Earth was trapped, but we were wrong. You were never the prisoners. You were being prepared to become the jailers. The guardians, the protectors of all that we could not save. This beacon contains everything you need to begin understanding your true purpose. But be warned, accessing this knowledge will alert them to your presence. They will know you are ready, and they will come." The hologram began to fade. "Make us proud, children of Earth. Succeed where we failed. The galaxy needs guardians again." As the hologram disappeared, the room's walls lit up with countless streams of data. Star maps, technical specifications, historical records, the complete knowledge of one of the most advanced civilizations ever known. Hyun's instruments were recording everything, but her hands were shaking. "Admiral," she said, turning to Do-hyun, this changes everything we thought we knew about human history, about our place in the galaxy." Do-hyun nodded slowly, his mind racing with the implications. They had thought Earth was trapped, held back by mysterious forces they couldn't explain. Instead, they had been protected, trained, prepared for something bigger than they could have imagined. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of what they had discovered. Tell them we found out why we were never alone in the universe. Tell them we know why we had to learn to break free." As his officers hurried to follow his orders, Do-hyun looked at the space where the hologram had been. Humanity had spent centuries believing they were prisoners in their own solar system. Now they knew the truth. They weren't meant to be prisoners at all. They were meant to be the jailers. And somewhere out in the darkness between stars, something was stirring, something that had once brought down the mightiest empire the galaxy had ever known. Something that would soon discover that humanity had learned its lessons well. The real question was, were they ready for what came next? Commander Jae-won Kang stood on the beach of Jeju Island, watching the ocean waves under the morning sun. Behind her, a team of scientists and military personnel worked around a large hole in the sand. They had been digging here for 3 days, ever since the strange signal started coming from deep underwater. Her computer tablet beeped with a new message. It was from Admiral Do-hyun Park on the ISS Serenity, now returning to Earth after their discovery of the ancient beacon. She read the message quickly, her eyes growing wider with each word. "Mom," one of the scientists called out. "We found something." Jae-won walked to the edge of the hole. 20 feet down, metal walls gleamed in the sunlight. They weren't rusty or damaged like old shipwrecks. They looked new, as if they had been built yesterday. "How old is it?" she asked. The scientist checked his instruments. "According to our first tests, millions of years old. But that's impossible. Nothing man-made should last that long." "It's not man-made," Jae-won said quietly, looking at her tablet again. "And we're finding more of these all over Earth's oceans." She walked down the temporary stairs they had built into the hole. The metal wall had strange symbols on it, just like the ones Admiral Do-hyun had described from the space beacon. As she got closer, the symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. "Everyone, step back," she ordered, but she stayed where she was, watching as a door appeared in the wall, opening silently. Cool air came from inside. Jae-won turned on her flashlight and stepped through the doorway. The inside was clean and dry, despite being under the ocean for millions of years. The walls were covered with the same flowing patterns that Do-hyun had seen on the beacon. "This is Commander Kang," she spoke into her radio. "I'm inside the structure. It appears to be some kind of control room." She walked to a central platform where a control panel sat waiting. As she approached, it lit up and a hologram appeared. It showed Earth, but Earth as it was millions of years ago. Around the planet was a complex network of energy fields, the barriers that humans had thought were natural space phenomena. "Running system check," a calm computer voice said in perfect Korean. "Earth defense network status. Dormant. Time elapsed since last activation. 3.7 million years. New species detected. Human. Analyzing compatibility." Jae-won held her breath. On her tablet, she could see similar reports coming in from other sites around the world. In the Atlantic Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, the Pacific, everywhere, ancient structures were waking up. Analysis complete, the computer announced. Human species confirmed as designated successors. Beginning activation sequence. The hologram changed, showing dozens of points under Earth's oceans where more structures lay hidden. These facilities were created to train and prepare the next Guardians, the computer explained. They contain combat simulators, tactical databases, and defense systems designed by the Celestial Empire. Jae-won touched the control panel carefully. "What are we supposed to be guarding against?" The computer was silent for a moment. Then new images appeared in the hologram, strange shapes that hurt her eyes to look at. They moved in ways that didn't seem possible, bending space around them. The enemy comes from spaces between spaces, the computer said. They cannot be seen directly. They cannot be fought with normal weapons. The Celestial Empire discovered this too late. That is why you were chosen. Why us? Jae-won asked, even though Admiral Do-hyun's message had already told her the answer. Human minds can understand things that the Empire could not, the computer replied. Your species sees patterns that should not exist. You create solutions that defy logic. The Empire feared these qualities at first. Then they realized these same qualities made humans the perfect defenders against the enemy. On her tablet, more messages were appearing. Similar conversations were happening at sites all around the world. The ancient training facilities were activating, ready to teach humanity what they needed to know. Back on the ESS Serenity, Dr. Hae-yum Lee was studying the data from the beacon when her computer started showing new information. Admiral, she called out. The beacon is receiving signals from Earth. Do-hyun rushed to her station. On her screen, they could see the locations of all the underwater facilities lighting up like stars on a map. They're all connecting to each other, Hae-yun said excitedly. It's a network. The whole Earth is covered by it. Look at these designs, she continued, pointing to technical drawings that were appearing. These aren't just training facilities. They're weapon factories, defense stations, everything we would need to protect not just Earth, but the whole galaxy. Lieutenant Ta Yang spoke up from his station. Admiral, we're picking up strange readings from deep space. Something out there is moving. Something big. Do-hyun's face became serious. How long until we reach Earth? 2 days at maximum speed. Sir. Make it 1 day, Do-hyun ordered. Whatever's out there, it knows we're ready now. We need to get back and help Commander Kang prepare Earth's defenses. In the underwater facility, Jae-won watched as more systems came online. The computer was showing her things that seemed impossible, weapons that could fire through dimensions, shields that could block attacks from outside normal space, engines that could move ships through spaces that didn't exist. Training program ready, the computer announced. Would you like to begin? Jae-won thought about all the science fiction stories she had read as a child. Stories about humanity breaking free from their cosmic prison. Now, as she knew the truth, they had never been prisoners. They had been students, learning lessons they would need to protect the galaxy. Yes, she said firmly. Begin training. The room transformed around her. Suddenly, she was standing in what looked like a battlefield, but not one on any normal world. The sky was the wrong color, and things moved in the distance that her mind couldn't quite understand. First lesson, the computer said. Understanding the nature of dimensional warfare. The enemy will attack from angles that do not exist. You must learn to fight in ways that were impossible for the Empire. As Jae-won began her training, similar scenes were playing out around the world. In the Atlantic, a Brazilian naval officer was learning to operate weapons that could fire backward through time. In the Mediterranean, a Greek scientist was studying shields that could block attacks from the spaces between atoms. In the Pacific, a Japanese pilot was practicing flying through folds in reality. The ancient facilities had waited millions of years for this moment. Now they were active again, teaching humanity the lessons they would need to become the galaxy's new guardians. On the Serenity, Do-hyun stood at his window again, watching the stars blur past as they raced back to Earth. He thought about the hologram's warning from the beacon. The enemy was coming. The same enemy that had destroyed the mighty Celestial Empire. But this time would be different. This time, the defenders would be human. A species that had spent centuries learning to break through impossible barriers. A species that could think in ways that even the Empire couldn't understand. The Empire had thought they were containing humanity. Instead, they had been preparing them for this moment. Now it was time to see if their preparation had been enough. Because somewhere out in the darkness between stars, the enemy was moving. and Earth's time as a training ground was over. The real test was about to begin. Dr. Hae-Yun Lee sat in the science lab of the EFS Serenity, surrounded by glowing screens filled with data from the ancient beacon. Her eyes were tired from reading, but she couldn't stop. With each new piece of information she decoded, the true story of the Celestial Empire became clearer and scarier. The door opened, and Admiral Do-Hyun Park walked in. "Tell me you found something useful," he said, placing a cup of coffee next to her keyboard. Hae-Yun nodded, taking a sip of the coffee. "I did, but you might wish I hadn't." She pressed a button, and a new image appeared on the main screen. It showed a map of the galaxy, but not like any map they had seen before. This one showed space bent and folded in impossible ways. "The enemy isn't from our universe," she explained. "They live in the spaces between spaces, the tiny gaps between atoms, the folds between dimensions. The Empire called them the Void Hunters." Do-Hyun pulled up a chair and sat down. "How do you fight something like that?" "That's the interesting part." Hae-Yun opened another file. "The Empire couldn't fight them. Not really. Their minds couldn't understand how to attack something that existed in spaces they couldn't see. But humans," she smiled slightly, "we've been doing it all along." She showed him pictures of human art through history, impossible drawings by Escher, abstract paintings that seemed to move when you looked at them, ancient symbols that played tricks with your eyes. Humans have always been able to think about impossible things. We can imagine spaces that can't exist. The Empire saw this in our art, our stories, our dreams. The ship's computer beeped with an incoming message from Earth. It was Commander Jae-won Kang, broadcasting from the underwater facility in Jeju. Her face appeared on a screen, looking excited despite her obvious tiredness. "Admiral, Doctor, you need to see this," Jae-won said. She held up her tablet, showing recordings from the training simulations. These facilities weren't just teaching us how to fight. They were teaching us how to see. The recording showed Jae-won in a simulation, fighting against shapes that shouldn't exist. But instead of trying to attack them directly, she was learning to see the spaces where they weren't, the gaps they left in reality. "It's like seeing the shadows of a bird by watching where sunlight doesn't reach," she explained. "That's not all," Jae-won continued. "The facilities are showing us something else, something the Empire found just before they disappeared." She sent them a new file. Hae-Yun opened it, and her coffee cup slipped from her hand, spilling across the floor. On the screen was a picture of Earth, taken millions of years ago. But it wasn't just Earth. It was Earth surrounded by a complex web of natural energy fields, fields that had been there long before the Empire found Earth. "We didn't just learn to break through the Empire's barriers," Hae-Yun whispered. "Our whole planet exists in a natural fold in space-time. We evolved in a place that shouldn't exist. That's why we can think in ways the Empire couldn't. We're children of an impossible space." Lieutenant Ta Yang's voice came urgently through the ship's speakers. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple dimensional ruptures forming near Earth's solar system. They're coming." Do-Hyun stood up quickly. "How long until we reach Earth?" 3 hours, sir." "Commander Kang." Do-Hyun turned back to the screen. "How ready are Earth's defenses?" Jae-won checked her systems. "The facilities have activated everything. We have weapons we barely understand, shields that can bend reality, and about 1,000 people worldwide who've been through crash courses in dimensional warfare. It's not much, but it's more than the Empire had." Hae-Yun was still studying the data. "There's something else here," she said slowly. "The Empire didn't just choose us because we could think differently. They chose us because we could do something they couldn't." She looked up at Do-Hyun. "We can change." She showed them more historical data. "Look at human history. Every time we faced something impossible, we didn't just overcome it. We absorbed it. We made it part of ourselves. The Empire saw this. They saw how fast we could adapt, how quickly we could make the impossible become normal. The enemy destroys civilizations by attacking from spaces those civilizations can't understand, she continued. But humans, we can understand any space if we try hard enough. We can learn to think in new ways. That's what really scared the Empire about us. That's why some of them wanted to contain us forever. The ship shuddered as it pushed its engines to their limits, racing back to Earth. On screens throughout the vessel, reports were coming in from around the world. The ancient facilities were fully awake now, their impossible weapons ready to fire, their dimensional shields humming with power. In the Jeju facility, Jai-1 watched as her trainees practiced fighting in spaces that had no right to exist. They were learning fast, faster than the Empire's computers had predicted possible. Humans weren't just good at understanding impossible things. They were good at teaching others to understand them too. Admiral, Ta Yang called out again. I'm detecting something strange in the dimensional ruptures. The enemy, they're hesitating. It's like they've never seen anything like our defenses before. He-Yun checked her readings. They're used to attacking civilizations that can only fight in normal space. But look at what we're doing. Our weapons are firing through time. Our shields exist in spaces between spaces. We're fighting them in their own territory. Do-Hyun smiled grimly. The Empire thought they were our jailers, but they were wrong. They weren't containing us. They were containing themselves, their own fears, their own limitations. They couldn't imagine a species that would see their barriers as puzzles to solve, rather than walls to stop us. And now, Jai-1 asked through the video link. Now we show the enemy why the Empire really chose us, Do-Hyun said. Not because we were trapped in our solar system, but because we were the only ones who could break free. Not just from physical barriers, but from the barriers of what's possible. The dimensional ruptures were growing larger. The enemy was coming, just as they had come for the Empire. But this time, they would find something different waiting for them. Not a civilization bound by the rules of normal space, but one that had learned to break those rules. Humanity had spent centuries thinking they were trapped by mysterious forces around their solar system. Now they knew the truth. Those forces hadn't been a prison. They had been a training ground, and the graduation test was about to begin. The enemy was about to learn why the Empire had chosen humanity as their successors. Not because humans were powerful, but because they could become whatever they needed to be, even if what they needed to be was impossible. The real war was about to start, and humanity was ready to show the universe why they had been the jailers all along. The sky above Earth turned strange colors as the enemy broke through into normal space. Their shapes hurt human eyes to look at them. Twisted forms that seemed to fold in on themselves in impossible ways. There were thousands of them, pouring out of tears in reality like dark water through broken glass. Admiral Do-Hyun Park stood on the bridge of the EF's Serenity, watching Earth's defense fleet move into position. Every ship was armed with weapons reverse-engineered from the Empire's technology. But these weapons weren't copies. Humans had changed them, improved them in ways the Empire never imagined. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Ta Yang Song announced from his station. His hands moved steadily over the controls, even though this was his first real battle against an enemy that shouldn't exist. Commander Kang, are Earth's defenses ready? Do-Hyun asked through the communication screen. Jai-1's face appeared, lit by the blue glow of the ancient facility's controls. All stations report ready. Admiral, the Empire's weapons are fully charged. We've modified them based on what we learned in training. Dr. He-Yun Lee worked at her station, studying the enemy's movement patterns. They're trying to surround us, she said. But look, they're keeping to spaces we can see. They don't know we can fight in the spaces between spaces yet. Do-Hyun nodded. This was their advantage. The enemy thought they were fighting another normal civilization. They didn't know that humans had learned to think in impossible ways. All ships, begin attack pattern infinity, Do-Hyun ordered. This was a battle plan that would have made the Empire's greatest generals confused. It didn't follow normal logic. But humans weren't limited by normal logic anymore. The Earth fleet split apart, but not in ways that made sense. Ships seemed to disappear, moving through spaces that didn't exist. They had learned from the enemy's own tactics, but they had made them better. First wave of enemy ships approaching, Tai Yang reported. They're using their usual attack pattern, trying to push us into normal space where they think we're weak. Let them think that, Du Hyun said calmly. Commander Kang, activate the planetary defense grid. On Earth, Jai-1 pressed her hand against the ancient control panel. Around the planet, hundreds of facilities that had slept for millions of years came fully awake. Energy fields appeared around Earth, but not like the barriers the Empire had built. These were different. Humans had redesigned them. The enemy struck first, sending waves of impossible energy at Earth. They expected their attack to tear through normal defenses. Instead, Earth's shields absorbed the energy, twisted it through dimensions that shouldn't exist, and sent it back. They're confused, Hye-Yun said, watching her screens. Their attacks aren't working like they usually do. They don't understand how we're doing this. The battle spread across the solar system. Human ships fought in ways that broke the rules of space and time. When the enemy tried to attack through the spaces between moments, they found humans waiting for them there. When they tried to strike from angles that shouldn't exist, human weapons fired back from even stranger angles. On her screens, Hye-Yun watched the enemy's movements become less certain. They're starting to realize, she said. They're finally understanding what the Empire knew. We're not just fighting in impossible spaces, we're changing them, making them our own. In the Jeju facility, Jai-1 directed Earth's defenses. The ancient weapons fired streams of energy that bent reality itself. But they weren't firing randomly. Humans had learned to see patterns in chaos, to find logic in spaces where logic shouldn't exist. Admiral, Tai Yang called out suddenly. The enemy, they're retreating. But not just retreating. They're running away. They're afraid. Do Hyun watched as the impossible shapes of the enemy pulled back from Earth. They had faced thousands of civilizations before, destroyed the mighty celestial empire itself. But they had never faced humans before. Never faced a species that could adapt to their own tactics and make them better. They're sending out some kind of signal, Hye-Yun reported, broadcasting it across all dimensions. I think it's a warning to others like them. They're telling them to stay away from Earth. The battle wasn't long, not really. It had taken the enemy years to wear down the Empire's defenses. But humanity had done more than just defend. They had shown the enemy something new, something scary. They had shown them that humans could fight in ways that even the enemy didn't understand. As the last of the enemy disappeared back into their impossible spaces, Du Hyun looked at his crew. Everyone was tired, but proud. They had done what the Empire couldn't do. Not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they could change, adapt, become something new. Admiral, Hye-Yun said softly, I'm picking up new signals. From other parts of the galaxy. There are other civilizations out there, younger ones. They'd been hiding from the enemy, waiting for someone to protect them. Just like the Empire protected us, Du Hyun said. Now it's our turn to be the protectors. Over the next few weeks, humanity began to understand their new role in the galaxy. The Empire hadn't chosen Earth as a prison. They had chosen it as a school, a training ground for the guardians they knew the galaxy would need. The ancient facilities didn't shut down after the battle. Instead, they began to teach humans new things. How to find other civilizations that needed protection. How to teach them to defend themselves. How to be the guardians that the Empire had believed they could be. It's funny, Jai-1 said during a meeting with Du Hyun and Hye-Yun. The Empire spent all that time and energy building barriers around Earth, thinking they were containing us. But those barriers didn't trap us. They taught us how to break free of any trap. Hye-Yun nodded. And now we can teach others, not to think exactly like us, but to find their own ways to break free. Every civilization has its own unique way of seeing things. That's what makes the galaxy strong. Do-hyun looked out at the stars through the Serenity's window. Somewhere out there, other young civilizations were waiting to learn what humanity had learned. Not just how to fight in impossible spaces, but how to change, adapt, and grow beyond what seemed possible. The enemy had run away from Earth, but Do-hyun knew they would be back someday. Not soon. They had learned to fear humans now, but someday. And when they did come back, they would find humanity had grown even stronger, had learned to think in even stranger ways. Because that was what humans did best. They didn't just break through barriers. They learned from them. They didn't just fight in impossible spaces. They made those spaces their home. They weren't just guardians of the galaxy. They were teachers, showing others how to guard themselves. The Empire's last warning had been their greatest gift. They hadn't trapped Earth. They had set humanity free. Free to become something new. Something that could protect the galaxy in ways the Empire never could. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun. And this time, the impossible spaces between stars would be protected by guardians who knew how to make the impossible possible.